Now, let's get straight to it, because Peter likes to talk quite a lot and sometimes doesn't let anybody else listen. So, Peter, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you for coming onto the show. Can we agree, first of all, some kind of rules of engagement so that we don't talk over each other constantly?
Well, probably not. I imagine you'll talk over me once or twice, and I'll talk over you. It's in the nature of strong personalities having conversations.
It is. Well, let's try and do it as cordially as we can, and let's try and not talk over each other if we can possibly avoid it.
Possible, yeah.
Well, why don't you set out for us why you think that this government has overstepped the mark and what you think they're doing wrong?
Well, I think fundamentally the action has always been, from the very start, disproportionate. It's been based on advice which the government has chosen to take, which is not the only advice it could have taken. I think that the government has gravely underestimated several things. It's gravely underestimated the damage that it is doing to personal liberty. It's gravely underestimating, and this is hugely important, but I put it second because people always accuse me of worrying more about money than about lives, a point I'll come to in a moment. They've gravely underestimated the extraordinary damage which shutting down the economy of an advanced nation can do and is doing, and is, as we speak, doing to the lives and livelihoods of increasing numbers of people who are losing jobs, losing businesses, suffering wage cuts, and will in future suffer enormous tax rises and cuts in their standard of living for many years to come. So I think in general it's a mistaken, disproportionate reaction to a problem which I think has almost certainly been overstated in any case, and also misstated.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly share your views about Mr. Niall Ferguson from the Imperial College, who's made bad mistakes before in the past about estimations of things during other crises, But let me just finish this. But as far as, let's start with personal liberty. I don't consider it to be an infringement of my personal liberty to be asked to only go out if you absolutely have to only go jogging or walking, to not go out and have a picnic if you don't want to have one, and to be able to go to the shops to buy the things that you need. I really don't think that's much of a massive problem.
Well, there is a fundamental point here. England has had a unique form of law and liberty for many centuries, and it's based on this fundamental principle. Everything is legal unless it's specifically prohibited by a law agreed by a free parliament. And this isn't really the case here. There is no real law which backs up what's being done. There is also, how should I put it, something servile in being told by the government and by the police when you can leave your home. And I think anybody who doesn't fundamentally bridle at being told that the police can decide when you're entitled to leave your home or not has actually got something wrong with them.
Yeah, but that's not really what's happening, is it?
Brought up as I was.
Yeah, but Peter,
as a free British person.
Yeah, but Peter, that's not really.
It finds that repellent and wrong.
All right. Well, all right. Now, can you stop for a second so I can respond?
You're interrupting me, but sure, I'll stop.
Well, please. I mean, you're going to have plenty of time. This is not Good Morning Britain.
I can never count on that.
Well, you can count on it here. Here's the thing. It's not that the police are telling you when you can go out and when you can't go out. They're trusting most people to know what to do, because the whole point of this exercise is not to restrict your liberty. It is to ensure that the NHS does not become overrun. And as far as I can see, that appears to be working.
Well, there are 2 points there. I think the police have greatly moderated their behaviour since the very important intervention of Lord Sumption, the former Supreme Court judge, last week, who quite rightly rebuked the police for being officious and unnecessarily restrictive. There are also certain points of logic here which I think people do need to examine. One has to ask, for instance, just looking at the regulations which have been set forth, why is it that small construction firms can't operate whereas big ones can? Why is it that supermarkets can open when covered markets can't, and garden centres can't, and all kinds of other illogicalities? And the other thing is exactly why it should be that any government minister, such as Michael Gove, could stand up and say, well, I think maybe an hour of exercise is enough, or for a lot of people an hour of exercise is not enough. There's then the other fundamental question that really does need to be examined. First of all, is this action effective? Is there any evidence whatsoever that it is effective? And the answer is no. If you look at all the countries which have experienced COVID-19 outbreaks, from China to South Korea to Hong Kong to Singapore to the United States to Latin America to the Netherlands, to France, Spain, Italy, Sweden, Norway and Denmark, you will not find a pattern which suggests that shutting down the economy and restricting personal freedom actually reduces any deaths at all. What's very interesting about looking at all these countries is that none of them show any real consistent pattern between the action taken by government and what happened next. Indeed, people praised Hong Kong and Singapore for their rapid actions, and in both cases, after they took their actions, the coronavirus instances decreased.
Yeah. But I think you're...
Hang on, this is a vitally important
All right,
point.
well, hurry up then, because otherwise we'll run out of time.
Hurry up. If you'll forgive me, the important points can't necessarily be hurried.
No, but this is a conversation. It is not a monologue, Peter.
And I now have to start it again. Although Hong Kong and Singapore were both praised for their effective actions, which had very similar results, they were different actions.
Okay.
So
can you let me answer it now?
What you cannot do here is either on the basis of correlation or on the basis of causation say that these actions will actually reduce the number of deaths.
Yes, but you see, you've got it completely wrong here, Peter, because the actions which are being taken in this country are not about reducing deaths. They are about reducing a rush of people going into hospitals, which would create more deaths, right? So if you have Hang on a second. No, you can't start interrupting me after 2 seconds.
I thought you finished, sorry.
Yeah, let me finish, and you will be able to come back to me. The point about the policy that the government is currently pursuing is because of the fact that they can't have a rush of people, patients who need to be given ventilators, who need to be given equipment, of which there is a world shortage, by the way. All right, that's what they're trying to prevent. They know that these people will probably die. They know that probably, as you've said many times in some of your articles, that there are more people who will die anyway of various other things and who would die otherwise. But the point is, it's the rush that they're trying to prevent rather than the deaths. And I think in that, the evidence that it's working is in that there is no rush.
Well, not exactly, no. There is no evidence at all of any connection between this policy and that happening.
Well, it is happening, though.
It's what the government say they're doing. It's not you can accept what the government tells you if you like, but all my long training as a journalist is based on the good old Otto von Bismarck slogan: "Never believe anything until it's been officially denied."
Yes.
I don't necessarily believe what the government says. I don't necessarily believe that they know what they're doing.
Neither do I. But then I wouldn't listen. But hang on, Peter. That does not qualify you as an expert in anything. It's all very well to be, a critical person. It's all very well to be cynical about the government. However, this is, I think you would agree with me, at least on this, a very unprecedented situation.
No, I wouldn't agree it's unprecedented.
Really?
If you go back over recent years in several European countries, you'll find influenza outbreaks of similar or greater size, which were barely covered.
That's not true.
Well, it is true.
No, it isn't.
I mean, do you know how many people died of influenza
That's
in
not
England?
the point.
In England alone,
I know 17,000 people die of influenza quite regularly in this country on an annual basis.
How many died in the season of 2014, 2015?
But I have never had to...
This is in England alone, 28,330.
Okay.
It's not in size. This event is quite comparable to a major influenza outbreak, and in many countries in Europe, including this, there have been such recent outbreaks. So in size, it's not. Obviously, someone is now going to say it's possibly you that I've said that coronavirus and flu are the same. Well,
I've never said that. I've never said that. Listen, Peter, you are not the all-time master. You're not the all-time... Excuse me, wait a second. You are not the all-time master of everything that you survey. You spent most of the morning tweeting some guy in Peru complaining that he hasn't put you on his radio show.
Did I?
Yes. That's why people kept saying. The other thing is you don't follow it. You don't follow anybody on Twitter, Peter. So that's why you don't get notifications.
This is wasting time. My point is in response to your point about experts. Now, as far as I know, Mike, you're not an expert either.
No, I don't pretend to be.
Exactly, nor do I. And
you do. You're telling us the government is getting it wrong.
I repeatedly say over and over again, I am no expert, but the people that I quote are experts. And here are some of the people who I quote. Professor Dr. Susrit Bhakti, an extremely distinguished professor of microbiological medicine at the University of Mainz in Germany, who is warned specifically against the measures that are being taken because of the extreme damage that they do, particularly to the healthy old. And he's actually now put this warning in the form of an open letter to Frau Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, because he thinks the policy is so wrong. You must also, of course, take into account very much here Anders Tegnell, the man in charge of the Swedish government response to coronavirus, who completely disagrees, who was trained here, by the way, in British universities, who completely disagrees with the policy. And
but as you know, Peter...
Hang on, please don't interrupt.
Well, I'm trying not really hard not to, but you've got to stop talking every now and again.
Sorry, well, I'm sorry. If I interrupt you, you say don't do it, and then I stop. If you interrupt me, then you carry on interrupting me. If this is to be fair, I have to be able to get a point across.
I'm giving you time to do it, Peter, but you do have to stop talking occasionally.
Please give it to me then, because it's very unusual for anyone in British broadcasting. I have to give you credit for this.
Thank you.
To give me any time at all to make a point, which I happen to believe badly needs making, which lots of people want to hear being made, because at the moment they hear nothing but consensus.
And I do want you to listen. I do.
As I was saying, the man in charge of Sweden's very different response disagrees profoundly and thinks that Britain made a mistake by switching to shutting down the economy. What you also must take into account here, and you read the headlines or listen to the headlines on your own radio station, or the one about Debenhams, which was on the news bulletin preceding this segment of the program. The number of companies, large and small, which are now going into very, very serious problems of negative cash flow, and as a result face bankruptcy, closure, unemployment, wage cuts, and the state of the economy in general, which must, as a result of this, already be facing gigantic taxation cuts, the shriveling of pensions, the reduction of social services, the inability to pay the bills of the National Health Service we claim to be defending. It's enormous. And these things will have huge damage on human life. And the question has to be, is this the correct strategy? If we just say the government's right, then, and if there's no opposition and no discussion, there has never been in the history of man, and this is why we have free societies and why they've always been so successful, there has never been a policy which does not benefit from serious, responsible criticism and opposition. That's why we have an official opposition in this country, to make sure this happens. The official opposition in this country has failed to oppose.
Yes, well, the official opposition... Can I come in now, please, Peter?
Most of the media has not debated this either, and
right.
You're now giving a very rare opportunity for some serious discussion of this.
Well, we do an awful lot of this, Peter. You should listen to the show more often, because we do actually encourage people to have differences of opinion. We do encourage people to come on here and argue with me. I'm absolutely perfectly happy for you to do that. But you also know, as an experienced journalist of long standing, that you can always find people who will have a particular view. Scientific communities are no different from any others. And I can find you people in Sweden who are scientists who are not sure that what they're doing is going to turn out to be the best way to go. Because what I can say to you, for example, is if you look at what happened in New Orleans recently, they decided to go ahead and have the Mardi Gras, okay? Because apparently, according to the mayor of New Orleans, she took Donald Trump's view that this was not going to be a problematic virus. They have now had to pretty much shut down New Orleans, and they're now talking about it being Hurricane Katrina 2, because so many people are going to be sick. And all the people that went to the Mardi Gras have flown back to their communities in different parts of America and are currently spreading the virus. Are you still there? Where's Peter gone? But I must apologise, Peter. We've got you back, I think.
You have.
We have, for some reason, a very odd gremlin in the system at 18 minutes past 12.
Probably that guy in Peru.
It's probably Lewis in Peru, exactly right. I don't know how much of what I said you heard, so I'll just...
None, I'm afraid. You just vanished from my life.
Well, I will quickly sort of summarise it. Basically, what I'm saying is that you know, as a seasoned journalist of many years, that you can find scientists who will say all sorts of things. I mean, for example, there's a guy who's the chairman of the Nobel Foundation in Sweden called Professor Carl-Henrik Helden, who called on the government to introduce more stringent containment measures, doesn't think that what Sweden are doing is correct. He says we're not testing enough, we're not tracking, and we're not isolating enough. And I think the problem for all of us here is that it is a bit of an unknown. I accept your points, right? And you're very well entitled to make them and to have them. But what I do say is that not everybody out there is as smart as you are, and not everybody out there will take what you're saying as an argument, and they will take it instead as permission to go and do whatever they like. And this is a very dangerous virus, and it's clearly not acting like anything else, certainly in my lifetime that I've seen, that I can remember coming to this country, okay? And so I'm just saying that I think it's too early for us to know whether this is the right thing to do, and I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Well, to what extent would you rather be safe than sorry?
Well, to the extent we have so far.
This is the whole thing has been from the start a matter of proportion. There is no safety whatsoever in crashing an economy. Do you have any idea what effect it will have on the economy to continue to shut it down?
Well, I can't imagine.
Do you have any idea of the damage that has already been done?
I do.
Have you visited small businesses which are still open, to find out near where you live, to find out how they're doing?
Yes, of course. That's what I do all the time.
What's going on?
I go to Borough Market on a regular...
These people are dying. Their business is dying.
Yes, but hang on, Peter.
This is not just in small business. This is in large business and medium-sized business as well. The economy is taking those tremendous... If this happens, this isn't just a worry about money. This is part of the point that Dr. Sushrit Bhakti makes. If you damage your economy, then the lives of the healthy become less healthy. How can we afford the National Health Service we're supposed to love so much if we aren't paying enough tax to provide for it?
Well,
How can we pay that tax if our earnings are all much diminished, as they're going to be when this is over?
All right. Well, let me try and answer that for you before you go on, because we've only got about 7 minutes left. Here's the thing. The government has vowed to try and rescue and prop up as many businesses as it can. It has also set aside a massive amount of money for doing so, right? Now, it may well be that you don't believe that they can do that. It may well be that you doubt that. But I don't doubt it. I think they can do it, and I think they will do it. And I think that, in the end, this is something that none of us have experienced before. So, again, it's impossible to predict bad or good.
Well, you may have read a book about the great German inflation in the 1920s called When Money Dies. The point is, all those pretty little tokens in your pocket and in your wallet that we use to spend money are based upon nothing but confidence. And if confidence leaves money, then it collapses. And generally, the way in which economics corrects for the spending of money which has no wealth and confidence to back it is in serious inflation. There are other ways that it can happen. What will undoubtedly happen after this will be, you can guarantee this will be very considerable tax rises. I can't see, for instance, that the 10-year freeze on petrol tax can continue for a moment longer than this. So everyone's going to find the basic tool of life for a lot of small businesses and workers. The price of petrol itself will rise sharply. The funds which go to sustain the pensions which people hope to live on have shriveled. Savings will be greatly diminished by the total lack of interest and inflation. Pay is actually being cut in this country on a large scale. For the first time since the 1930s, people are actually being confronted by employers with demands for pay cuts. People who've been furloughed now expecting to go back to work may well find there is no work to go back to. This is what the government has achieved by this extraordinarily rash policy. There's no safety in this policy. It's incredibly dangerous. And the effect on health, the effect on the health service, the effect on all kinds of things like control of air pollution, water pollution, food quality, the quality of housing, all the things which actually supply the health of the people is colossal.
Okay, well, let me come back to you. I fundamentally disagree with almost all of that, because I don't believe that the government is going to let this country fall into rack and ruin in any way, shape or form. Neither will any other... Hang on. Neither will any other country of the world. Every other country in the world is in the same boat here. The only place where we can't really know what's going on is China, because they don't let anybody know what's going on. And I'm not sure that we can even look at what they've done to contain the virus or what to learn any lessons whatsoever, because
China
you can't...
is a closed society.
Yeah, you can't trust anything that they say. But if you look around the world, Peter, almost every country, aside from Sweden and maybe one or two others, is doing...
Japan and the Netherlands.
Japan has a terribly high level of deaths. The Netherlands, we're not sure about yet. Again, we're still very early on. I would use this as an analogy before I ask you the final question. What about the fact that the high street was already on its knees, was already dying? There were lots of industries in this country which were already in quite a bit of trouble. This could effectively be the complete opposite to what you describe, and it might actually, when we do come out of this finally, be a sort of boosted economy, boosted by government money. But let me ask you this final question. What would you do then, rather than what this government is doing? Would you keep all the businesses open? Would you run all the airlines around the world as they're not running at the moment? What would you do?
Well, there's no point in running airlines because there's no passengers, and even Sweden is not running airlines. The Swedish domestic airlines pretty much stopping flights. What would be the point of that? But I would very much follow the example of Sweden, which has kept a much more open society and has done much less damage to its economy. But we don't know how many deaths there are going to be yet. Well, we don't know how many deaths are going to be. We don't know if there's any connection. I keep saying this. We don't know if there's any connection whatsoever between the policy we're following and the number of deaths. And here's another thing which we haven't even discussed. The point made by Professor John Lee in The Spectator of last week about the distinction between deaths from COVID and deaths with COVID. Mm-hmm. Large numbers of people are dying, and they're being classified as COVID deaths, but they didn't die of COVID, they died with it. And you notice actually in many reports the newspapers are very careful to use the word after contracting COVID rather than because of, because we all know the great fallacy post hoc ergo propter hoc, saying because A happened after, B happened after A, B happened because of A. It's not necessarily so. We're working ourselves into a great panic and being, it seems to me, both irrational and rash. And if you think as I say, that crashing an economy is a safe policy, then I'm absolutely amazed.
Okay.
And we are doing this, and we're pretending we're being safe. This cannot last. This policy is already causing grave concern within the government, as you must know.
Yes.
At the highest level, the cabinet are
but it won't last,
realizing
though.
what
It's
it
not
is that
going to
they've
last.
done, because they didn't give proper consideration to what it was when they decided to do it, and they were panicked by the Imperial College figures, which, as you and I know, the Imperial College is not the oracle of wisdom in this matter, and there are other people with other views who could have been listened to and weren't.
There certainly are. Peter, listen, I want to thank you for coming on. We may have to do this again because there's obviously more to discuss, okay? So if you're willing to, we'll set you up again and maybe talk to you next week if that's possible.
Let's hope we don't have a system crash next time.
Well, we do it at a different time.
But we can do it via Peru
absolutely right.
That Peruvian guy can doubtless help.
We'll get the Peruvian marching powder out, perhaps, and we'll have a party.
No.
Now, listen, I appreciate your time. I thank you, and please don't take anything that I say to you on Twitter seriously, because I see that as a volume as a sort of platform for entertainment.
Oh, I take everything seriously, lad.
I know you do.
I have no sense of humour.
I know you do. But listen, thank you so much, Peter. We'll talk again. Peter Hitchens there with his views of the world. I don't agree with them, but listen, here's the thing. If you can't have a reasoned and honest and open debate with people, then it is the end of the world. It's not actually worth living in. I think I won. You can decide for yourselves. You can tell me whether you think I won or whether you think he's right. I don't think he is right. I don't think he's got any answers.